This is a Flying Cow production.
Well, hello, and welcome back once again to the Great Film Challenge. I, of course, am your host, Clay Johnson, the Flying Cow himself, and here with me again is my nephew, Aaron. Aaron, how we doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Great since the last time we recorded, just about a couple minutes ago.
Yep.
Just getting right back into the swing of things. As we mentioned in the last episode, we spun our wheel and landed on the film Lagaan, which is a film from 2001. It is an Indian Hindi language epic period music sports drama.
Yeah.
And it was, it starred Amir Khan, Gracie Singh, Rachel Shelley, and Paul Blackthorne. Directed by Ashutosh Gowirkar. Hopefully I'm saying that somewhere close to correct. And music was by A.R. Rahman. Now, I will say, when we looked at this list, there were a lot of these films. Like I said in the last one, we split this between films you have seen and films you haven't.
Yeah.
Well, when I was doing this, I also kind of looked at the films and kind of marked the ones that I hadn't seen. I will say, the ones you have seen, I think it came out to about, with the ones we've already reviewed, about 28 films. And so it was about 72 that you hadn't seen. I had seen, with the exception of one, all the films that you've seen. So there's one film you've seen that I haven't.
Which one was that?
American Psycho.
That's right.
We'll get to it.
Yeah.
But then, even looking at all the ones you hadn't seen, there were only about 15 that I had not seen from this whole list. So, the odds of us landing on one the first time that we spun this wheel,
yeah,
that I hadn't seen was not super high. I was expecting one I had seen. And when it landed on Lagaan, I was like, oh, okay, that is not only a film that I hadn't seen, but I was also not super familiar with it. I will say, once I read the synopsis, I was like, okay, I've heard of this film. But did you have any clue?
Nothing at all.
No.
I just knew about Indian movies.
Sure.
And that a few of them were really good, the ones I've heard.
Yeah. Have you seen any other Indian films?
No.
I will say my knowledge of Indian films is also rather low. I would like to see more, especially based on, what I have seen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really have not seen very much. And what little that Americans do know about Indian cinema is all Bollywood.
Yeah.
Which is basically just a specific, area and studio within India. Not all Indian films are Bollywood films. In fact, I don't believe this is a Bollywood film. I will say the producer, Amir Khan, who is also the star of the film,
yeah.
He I think the only other Indian film that I know I have seen also stars Amir Khan.
Oh.
In fact, we might watch that at some point.
I think we should.
In conjunction with this, but we'll talk about that later because that has to do with a different film. But getting into this film, so the film is based on. They do specifically say that the record of this was never kept, but they do make it seem like it is based on a true story.
Yeah.
It is set in 1893 during the time of British rule over India, and it's basically follows a small farming village in India that are basically being given a really difficult task, and so they are asking for kind of relief from the taxes, and they are given the opportunity to relieve those taxes if they can win a cricket match against a British against the British army that is there in a match. So yeah, like I said, I had heard about this movie on like other podcasts, just people mentioning it, but I'd never really gotten like a full breakdown of the film. First of all, when you saw that this movie was as long as it was, did you feel at all daunted?
No.
I will say I did. I've seen a few pretty long movies. The last 4 hour, was it 4 hours? Or it might have been longer. The last 4 hour movie that I watched was a slog, but it was kind of intended to be so. Whereas this, so I was a little trepidatious about it.
What's a slog?
Yeah, I was just afraid that it was gonna be, that I was gonna feel how long it was, and I really didn't. I mean, it definitely was very long, especially because we basically watched it 1.5 times.
Yeah,
because we started it in the 3 hour version that we found on YouTube.
Yep.
As we mentioned in the last episode, we found a 3 hour version on YouTube. We started watching that one, and then about close to halfway through, I realized, because all of a sudden one of the characters was like, "Oh, that was a beautiful song and dance you just did." And I'm like, "Wait, what song and dance? We didn't get to see a song and dance." And so we found, it took us a while, but we found a version that not only had all the songs and dances, but also had subtitles.
Yes.
And we watched it. And I will say, I think that the music numbers not only make it feel more like an Indian film, that what you are aware of for Indian films, but it also made the tone for me make much more sense. I know I brought this up, and you didn't seem to really agree with what I was saying, but when we were watching the version without music, it felt very melodramatic. It felt very over the top. Like everything was just like, oh, like the villain is very arch, and everything in the movie is just like, oh, this is the most important thing ever. It just felt very melodramatic. But when we started watching the version with songs, I don't know, maybe it was because I had already watched an hour and a half of it, but the tone didn't feel so off to me. It made more sense knowing that I was now watching something with musical numbers.
Yeah.
So I'm honestly glad that we ended up restarting it. But what were your overall thoughts of the movie?
Probably my favorite on the unseen list so far. Well, not the unseen list anymore, but
Right.
So far on the list of watching them and just in general, probably my favorite.
Okay.
I don't know. There was so many aspects to it, even though it was just one story. And it was all heading towards the same ending. But I loved the ending, the end part.
Mm-hmm.
That was actually during the game, the 3 days game.
Sure.
Because it was really intense.
Yeah.
And they kept going through with it, and I love that.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's really where the melodrama kind of fits for it, because everything is supposed to feel so important and so intense and things like that. Did you know much about the colonization of India before watching this movie?
A bit. Because I like history.
Yeah.
I've not fully got in on it and completely studied it, but I know about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was when the British Empire was starting to get really big.
Yeah,
or just already was in general.
That was around the height of the British Empire when they had control of India, yeah.
Yeah, their peak, and pretty much just unmade India, almost abolished all their culture.
I mean, it definitely westernized it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't really... Just the imperialization of it, really.
Sure.
That's about it. Almost completely undone.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so I will say I enjoy watching films about periods of history that I'm not familiar with, because it causes me to kind of research and look a little bit more into those periods. But yeah, so this having been your first the first Indian film that you've seen, what did you think about the incorporation of the music and the dancing?
I like it.
Yeah.
I really like most dance and musical numbers in movies. I thought it really fit, and it also really genuinely displayed some little bits of the culture that I knew about a little.
Yeah, it's a fun way to kind of see some Indian culture with the demonstration of the dancing and the singing, because it is undeniably different than something you'd see over here. I mean, we have musicals and stuff, but it's a completely different type of dancing, a completely different type of singing.
Yes.
It's just like any sort of music. It's an expression of emotion, but it's also, as you say, an expression of a culture.
Yes.
So, it's pretty cool. So I just want to talk a little bit about some of these characters. The villain in the film was played by Paul Blackthorne, who I had seen in a few things, I think, if I'm correct. Did you ever watch much of the Arrowverse from the CW?
I think I watched all of it.
Okay, yeah. So he was actually the police detective in Arrow for the first couple seasons. Yeah. I can't remember the character's name.
I forgot.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that because it had been a while since I fully watched it.
Right.
And it wasn't my favorite. It was also like some of the other CW shows. They were kind of just drug out.
Sure. Yeah, honestly, I never finished Arrow. I stopped about 3 or 4 seasons before they ended.
Yeah.
And I stuck around with, I think the only one of those that I finished was Supergirl. And that was because it was, honestly, it was probably my favorite out of those. I really enjoyed The Flash for a long time, but it eventually just got so ridiculous. I had to stop.
Yeah, seasons like I think 6 through 8 were the ones I didn't like. It's starting to get boring.
Yeah, but Quentin Lance was the character's name, Detective Lance. But yeah, so what did you think about his performance in this?
It was
the captain.
I liked it. He did a really good display of just how cocky the British could be.
Yeah.
But also just him as a character in general.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, he was very arch.
Yes.
Very kind of over the top. His whole thing, you could tell that he had a thing for controlling people and kind of wanting to take things from people.
Yes.
I think the best display of that was in one of the first, not the first scene because that was the hunting scene, but the scene that he did with the Raj, where basically he was like, "Oh, I'll do what you want, but first I want you to eat this meat, even though I know you're a vegetarian." Yeah. He basically just wanted to be able to do things. He wanted people to lose a bit of themselves. If he was going to do something for them, he wanted to take something from them. So yeah, definitely kind of, an asshole villain. Honestly, reminded me of, have you ever seen the film The Patriot?
No.
I think it came out around this time. But Jason Isaacs in that plays a British officer who is this level of villain. Just mustache twirling, I'm gonna, burn your children alive in a house type of, just I'm bad villain.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And this guy really kind of felt like that on a different level, because, he wasn't burning people in houses. He was, playing cricket and being an arrogant asshole.
Yeah.
But still, I think, I really enjoyed, the performers of the farming village. What was the name of the character? The madman that read fortunes. Do you remember that guy's name? Was that
I think it was Guran.
Guran? Yeah, he was fun. I mean, his bit where he started playing the game.
Yes.
He would just randomly shout things like
break the enemy. Yeah, break the enemy's back.
Yeah, just very violent and very forceful.
And then like a minute or two ago, as he walked up, but right before it, he was citing scripture.
Yeah, I mean, he always had kind of this wild man energy.
I loved it
about him, but it kind of went to a different level when he was playing the game.
It did.
I will say the one character that kind of clanged for me was the captain's sister, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Like, nothing against the actress, Rachel Shelley. She was just doing what she was asked to do, but I don't know, there was just something that felt very forced about that character. Number one, the fact that her character also fell in love with Bhuvan.
Yeah.
So it created this love triangle between him and her and Gowrie, even though hers was definitely one-sided and it was just, good-looking farmer guy who is helping his people. That's really where all of her affection came from. And meanwhile, she's all saying, "Oh, I'm in love with you. I'm in love with you." He has no clue.
Yeah.
And then he's having a love duet with Gowrie. But I don't know. There was just something that clanged to me about that character. It felt very kind of forced and contrived for the story, really. I will say in a lot of these types of stories about, oppression, there will often be one white character that is like, well, I'm good, even though everybody else is an asshole, and I'll help you.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, I mean, it didn't fully feel a white savior, because really the person that obviously the character of Bhuvan played by Amir Khan was really the savior of his people. She helped, but there was just something that felt very artificial about that character that really kind of felt like, well, we need at least one white good guy. Let's throw her in here. Like it just felt, like I said, very contrived for the story.
I didn't really see it.
Sure, and maybe it's just me. Maybe because I've seen so many stories like this, it just kind of clanged against me. But, anything else that you wanted to share about this film? He's thinking it over, folks. The smoke is getting thick.
I'm not sure. I think like the light character development for just everyone that was put on the team.
Yeah.
And
because I mean, for a 4-hour movie, they're gonna have to. If you're gonna have 4 hours, you better use it.
I think they did.
They developed the one character that we really didn't see much from until he was put on the team. And I don't know if I'm gonna remember his name, but was the disabled character.
Oh yeah.
Katra.
Yeah.
I think
Katra.
Yeah. Who we really didn't. If he had been in the background of scenes before, I didn't remember. It wasn't until all of a sudden the ball rolled to him and he, and I mean, I've thought that was an interesting thing, but it did feel like, oh, okay, well this, all of a sudden we're going to speed it up for the rights of disabled people and how the caste system is wrong, and just all of a sudden, like it's not been built up at all. We haven't been seeing this guy lurking in the background, or at least mentioning him lurking in the background. He hasn't been developed at all until all of a sudden he's on the team and he's going to really help us.
Yeah. I think it was just nice to have that anyways, because it also showed like the support in the team and just how efficient they could really be.
It was. I think I would have appreciated if he had been at least acknowledged as being present before then. Even if we didn't get into anything until that scene, if we just knew that he existed before then, it would have been nice. But yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Then it is time, Aaron, for us to spin our wheel. And as we said, we're going to go back and forth until we run out of films that you have seen and films that you haven't. We just talked about ones that you hadn't seen before. So now we're going to spin our wheel of the ones that you have seen. So spin this wheel and let us know what film are we going to be talking about next.
All right. It's not very large, so it's kind of fast. Okay. Oh, No Country for Old Men.
Okay.
That'll be interesting.
All right, and that is a change. I will say I think that is also a very long movie.
I don't remember how long it is.
It's been a while since I've seen it, but I do believe that is also very long. Yeah. Oh, let me see. Here it is. It is. Oh no, it's only 2 hours and 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So, about half the length of Lagaan. But yes, join us next time for that. But until that time, moo.